Neighbors keep staring at me, man. I might have to run for my life here in a minute. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Robert Arms. My name is Rob. I'm the host of this channel. If you're unfamiliar with this series, it's called Gun Anatomy, where I discuss the origins and mechanisms of common and uncommon weapon platforms. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started right now. It's a beautiful morning out. Forgive me if I don't sound very energetic. I just woke up trying to finish up filming this video. If you're wondering what the hat's all about, well, if you couldn't tell from the thumbnail, it's pretty freaking obvious. If there's anything that the communists were able to contribute to this world other than mass starvation and blue-haired college students, it's being able to mass produce a very reliable and aesthetically pleasing instrument of warfare. Today, I have the great pleasure of introducing the most common weapon in the entire world, the Soviet Kalashnikov AK-47. This weapon has seen action all over the world, from the humid jungles of Vietnam, the harsh deserts of the Middle East, and now today, the muddy battlefields of Eastern Europe, with almost over 100 million examples produced globally. One of the biggest reasons why this weapon is so prevalent in the world is mostly because of its simplicity. It was designed to be very easy to use and clean regardless of the shooter's education, whether that be a skilled marksman, uneducated Soviet conscript, or, you know, at the very worst, a child soldier. I mean, it's true. The AK revolutionized the way soldiers fight all over the world, equipping themselves with these cheap and mass-produced assault rifles originating from the Soviet Union and many other variants produced by many other countries. The AK started to gain prevalence in the United States after the Vietnam War, when U.S. soldiers would often describe how the weapon could function no matter what environment it received action in some cases even discarding their issued M16s for the Russian design. Now, the issues regarding the M16 at that time could be discussed in a different video. But in all fairness, the AK was designed to be one of the most rugged and reliable firearm platforms out there, being able to handle any kind of harsh weather or environment and function after the fact. This has given the AK the reputation of being the most widely recognized firearm in the entire world, even making an appearance on a nation's flag. This is all due to the ingenious of its designer, which leads to my next segment, the lore. If you don't want to listen to this portion of the video, that's perfectly fine, even though I suggest you should. You should probably go ahead and click the timestamp below to skip to the portion where I talk about how this weapon actually works on the inside. The inventor of the AK-47 was Mikhail Kalashnikov, a peasant from the Altai region of Soviet Russia. God, what a terrible spawn. Kalashnikov never received a formal education, but he had a very strong mechanical intuition, tinkering with tractor engines and even experimenting with some firearm designs in his youth. But he would soon apply this knowledge during the Second World War. In 1942, when the Germans invaded the Soviet Union, Kalashnikov was quickly pressed into the Red Army and assigned as a tank driver due to his mechanical skills. Now, like many unfortunate Russian men, he would soon be injured in combat fighting against the Germans, but while in recovery, he had overheard a lot of soldiers complaining about how their PPSH-41 submachine guns would constantly jam and malfunction during intense engagements and firefights against German troops who were issued with more well-developed and advanced small arms. Kalashnikov would be soon inspired to learn how to design small arms for the sake of equipping his fellow comrades with a more reliable and compact design to be used against the German invaders. When Kalashnikov was sent to Kazakhstan to recover from his wounds, he set out looking for an opportunity to design his submachine gun. He went around to a local train station where he was able to convince the manager of the factory there to be able to give him a workspace with tools and fellow workers and acquaintances to help him design his first ever prototype, the Kalashnikov submachine gun, which operated like many other submachine guns at the time, using a delayed blowback system. When Kalashnikov presented the weapon to local communist officials, they were very impressed by his design and helped him refine it. Afterwards, they sent him to Uzbekistan to have the weapon go through test trials, and after a very long, extensive test period, they figured that due to the manufacturing process and the reliability being no different than the issued current weapons at the time, they turned his design down. Now, however, they did send a letter of recommendation for him to be transferred to the Main Artillery Directorate in Moscow, or I guess the Russian abbreviation would be GAU. I'm just going to call it the GAU. The GAU, a research and development facility for weapons, allowed Kalashnikov to be able to further his design talents there in service of his country. Now, when young Kalashnikov arrived at the GAU, he very much quickly realized that he would be competing against some of Russia's most famous and talented firearm designers, like Degtярov, the inventor of the DP-28 machine gun, you know, the dinner plate Tachanka gun, Shpygin, the inventor of the PPSH-41 submachine gun, and Simonov, the future inventor of the SKS semi-automatic rifle, and many other designers that were working there at the time. Now, towards the latter half of the Second World War, the Soviet High Command had plans to replace many of the current issued firearms and all of their ammunition, because if you didn't know, World War II was an absolute logistical nightmare, regardless of what side you fought on. This would lead Soviet planners to design a new intermediate cartridge to standardize all infantry weapons under. This cartridge would become the 7.62 by 39mm cartridge. Weapons designers were given the task to design a new semi-automatic rifle, a belt-fed machine gun, and new submachine gun replacement chambered in this caliber. In 1944, designers began with a semi-automatic rifle to replace the SVT-40 and Mosin-Nagant bolt actions. Many designs were submitted, including young Kalashnikov's, which was called, I guess, the Kalashnikov 1944 self-loading carbine, which had a lot of similarities to the M1 Garand, minus the fact that its inspiration used a long-stroke gas piston, while his design used a short-stroke gas piston. Unfortunately, due to the complexity and weight of his design, it failed, and Simonov's design, the SKS, would end up being adopted. Now, World War II would come to a very climactic end, but this did not stop the Soviets from wanting to replace their submachine guns with newer designed weapons that were very similar and reminiscent to the German Sturmgewehr, a new assault rifle chambered in an intermediate round. This led designers to submit many of their designs to compete against one another, but many of them did not fit the requirements that the Soviets had requested, except for young Kalashnikov's. Kalashnikov's AK-47 design stood out among the others due to its long-stroke gas piston system with a rotating bolt, similar to the M1 Garand. It was seen as lightweight, simple, and easy to use, and was very rugged, being able to handle harsh environments. This was seen as the superior design. Kalashnikov would evolve the weapon into what we know today as the AK-47 assault rifle, and over a few periods of modifications, changes to the manufacturing process, in those few years, it would end up being adopted by the Red Army in 1949. Now, Kalashnikov would successfully design many other firearms that are still in use today, but the AK-47 would solidify itself in the Cold War when it was adopted by many other Warsaw Pact nations and other communist client states all over the world, earning itself the title of the most commonly owned firearm in the world. Obviously, that's quite a lot of information to cover. I tried to cover the best I could with the short amount of time that I had. If you're interested in how the AK-47 was actually developed and you want to extend into that history a little bit further, I have a lot of sources that I use for this video that I will link down below for you to learn about that stuff. Now, having said that, let's go ahead and show how this weapon works on the inside.
The AK-47 operates off a long-stroke gas piston system with a rotating bolt. The shooter begins by racking a magazine into the magwell, latching to the catch. The safety lever is disengaged and a round is racked into the chamber. The shooter pulls the trigger, releasing the hammer as it swings to strike the firing pin located in the bolt carrier group. The firing pin strikes the back of the primer, causing a reaction with gunpowder to launch the bullet via explosive gases through the bore. The gases are rerouted through the gas tube, directing itself into the gas piston. The pressure propels the gas piston rearward, rotating the bolt and extracting the spent casing. The piston is propelled rearward into the recoil guide spring, which compresses, and as this happens, the hammer is caught with the disconnector. The recoil guide rod then decompresses, propelling the bolt carrier group and the gas piston forward. The bolt pushes a new round into the chamber, locking its lugs into the recess of the bore, chambering the next round. The disconnector then resets the trigger, ready to start the process all over again.